Hey folks, it's Leah. Thank you for joining me today. Today I wanted to kind of return to the roots of this YouTube channel, go back to sort of a storytelling format. I'm not going to tell one long story today. I'm going to actually tell a few shorter stories. And this comes as a suggestion from some people in my life who were curious about what kinds of interactions I have with people because they're nice people and they're not really sure what it looks like for someone to bully you for being fat. One, they're not fat, and two, they're nice people, so they're not doing it either. Today I wanted to do, this is actually kind of a themed video because, oh my gosh, I have stories. But today I wanted to do stories that are on the theme of just the childishness that comes out of adults sometimes when it involves a fat person and how that bullying turns into something really, really childish and silly. And you would think they would be old enough to know better and wouldn't act so immature, but it just kind of brings it out in them, I guess. And so I'm going to tell a few different stories about kind of the childishness of the fatphobic bullies that I have come across in my life. The first story that comes to mind is one that actually took place probably more than 10 years ago now. And it was when I had gone to some kind of get together at a buddy's place and I had brought, I can't remember now, it was probably a cake, some kind of sweet, because I'm a pretty good baker. And so at that time, a lot of the time when I went to some kind of party or something, people would be like, oh, hey, Leah, can you bring dessert? Because they knew it would be some kind of tasty home baked thing. And so I had brought some kind of thing and I brought it in this, I always called it a cake carrier. It's one of those things, it's like a dome and a flat piece, and you put whatever, it's round, and you put whatever it is, the cake or the muffins or whatever, and then you put the dome over and you snap it shut, and it's supposed to keep them fresh and help you carry it around. So I had brought this cake carrier thing with me to the party with stuff in it. And then of course at the party, either the stuff was eaten up or I have a tendency to just leave the rest with people because that's the kind thing to do after they do all the work of hosting and everything. In those days, I didn't drive anywhere or take a ride from people unless it was offered by other people who were going the same direction or whatever. So I frequently took the bus. I remember getting on the bus with this cake carrier. As a fat person, you kind of find the nooks to kind of get out of the way so that you're not front and center. And so I found this little nook way at the back of the bus, and I had my little cake carrier and I was tucked in this little nook, minding my own business. And this guy got on, and this is a grown man. I want to be very clear. This was a grown man. And he gets onto the bus and he comes back towards the back of the bus and he sits very close to me and he looks over and he just starts kind of snickering. And I'm just oh, here we go. You know it's coming, right? And so he starts snickering and he's kind of smiling to himself and stuff. And he had kind of been sitting with his side to me. I was sitting facing forward and he was sitting facing sideways. Eventually he just kind of looks over and he says to me did you eat all that? And I'm just what the fuck? I'm a stranger on a bus. For starters, why are you even being a dick? Because you don't even know me. You've never met me before. I'm literally a stranger. And you could be carrying all manner of things in there. I had been carrying treats, but he doesn't know what I was carrying in there. And he's assuming that this enormous bin that I had put these cupcakes or whatever I brought, that whatever was in there, I must have eaten it all myself, and that's why it was empty. I mean, it's just so absurd. And I just remember looking at him and just if looks could kill was how I would describe it. I just looked at him with the deepest glare. I was how do I force every muscle in my face to show him what a piece of shit I think he is right now? And that's sort of how I responded. And I didn't actually say anything to him, I don't think. And that's one of the examples I can think of where adults just kind of lose their goddamn minds when they see fat people sometimes. They just sort of, for whatever reason, they become these childish, immature, I don't know, this guy almost acted like it was his birthday that there was some fat girl he could make fun of on the bus. It was just so immature and so childish that it really stuck out. The person who recommended this particular topic was like, this is the story that sticks out in my mind as like how immature people are about it. And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good encapsulation. The second story I was gonna tell to talk about like how immature full-grown adults get. I think a lot of it is kind of emotionally immature, but like how like really, really like childish it is there was a day when I was coming back from the grocery. I was with my partner at the time, who you've met on the channel. We had been at the time living about like maybe a 10-minute walk from the closest grocery. And so we would just kind of go get stuff and carry it home on foot. And I remember we were walking down, we were living like in downtown. It was quite busy. It was a pretty busy street. And I just remember we were walking down the street and just like talking to each other, whatever, bringing our groceries home. The cars are going by and these guys drive by in a truck. And one of the guys just like leans out the window and starts mooing at me. This is like pretty common. It's not like by any means the only time that this happened to me, but I remember my partner at the time just kind of stopping and being like, he just like didn't know what to say. He was just like, listen, I know you told me this happens, but to see it with your own eyes is a totally different experience. And it was just like so horrifying to him, but like it was just kind of Tuesday for me. But this is something that people do. It's incredibly childish, but they make barnyard noises at you. I've gotten oinks. I've gotten mooing. They just make noises at you and basically call you an animal. I haven't been like barked at. I don't think I've been barked at. I don't think I've been barked at, but I've been called a dog. I've been called a whale. I've been called a hippo. But the problem is with whales and hippos, they don't have like easily makeable sounds the way that like pigs and cows do. So those are the two most common for sure. I've gotten the moo thing. I've gotten like all kinds of times when I've been out in public and like been eating a snack, like having a sandwich with a buddy, eating an ice cream cone, whatever it might be. And someone will like, it's always from a moving vehicle for me, or almost always. It's people who are like passing through because they don't have to deal with the consequences. So they can be as juvenile as they want. They can be as shitty as they want and they don't have to deal with anything. So that is another example of how childish people get around fat people. Another example, and this is probably the last story I'll tell for today. There's a very like, oh my God, I cannot believe I have seen something as funny as a fat person. I must tell the whole world kind of attitude. And the best story I can tell to illustrate this one is that we had been using this rideshare service where you can like reserve a car and drive it around and so on. And we had kind of noticed something was weird around his steering or I don't know what, but he was a fairly new driver and he didn't really recognize the feeling of a flat tire yet. And so when we pulled up to a light, there was a guy who like rolled down his window and was like, bud, you got a flat tire, you know? And he's like, oh shit, okay. We had to go and have it replaced. And so the closest place that was still open because it was evening, it was like probably 7 o'clock, was this place that was near a mall near where I grew up. And so we had gone there and we only had until 8. So we were like, oh crap, we gotta go. So we went there as fast as we could. And we put on the little replacement tire and we drive real carefully to the place and we bring it in. We like, do you have time to do it? And they're like, yes, it'll be done just before 8. We're like, oh, thank goodness. So we had to go and kill time for about an hour. We're in the mall. It is just close to closing. And my husband is like, oh man, I could really go for some food. And I was like, okay, yeah. I mean, I haven't had dinner either. I'm fairly hungry. Maybe we just grab dinner here or whatever. And so he goes to get what he wants because we wanted 2 different things. I said, okay, I'll just like reserve the table. You know, this is a nice little spot. I'll stay here. You go get what you want. And I'll think about what I want. And then I can go get what I want. There had been this guy and I kind of clocked it at the time, but I suppose I had thought in my innocence, which I shouldn't have, that my innocence should be completely gone at this point around fat stuff. I saw this guy at this like cell phone place and it was a janky looking cell phone place, but he had kind of, as I passed by, kind of done like a little like chuckle to himself. And I remember thinking, oh, this, which is just like a thing that people do. Like they just literally laugh. That, I mean, I guess that's its own category of like being immature, but yeah, people just sort of like laugh to themselves when they see me and it's very clearly they're laughing at my body. I saw that happen and I was like, whatever, I'm not gonna let this guy ruin my day. Well, while I was in the food court waiting for my husband to go get his food, eat, and I could go get my food, the same guy mysteriously started touring the food court and like walking around and stuff. And he was making like he was like on his cell phone, and I thought to myself, is he talking to someone or what happened? Total rookie move. In the process of like having the phone up to his head or whatever, I saw the screen on his phone, and on the screen of his phone was a photo he had taken of me. From what I could gather, either he was taking a photo for his own memory because it was just so funny that he found a fat girl, or he had actually been speaking to someone and been like, oh my God, I'm going to take a picture of her and send her. Okay, just hang on 1 second, okay? And he was sharing it with someone, possibly. I just remember like just feeling so like violated. And this is something that happens all the time. Like people just take photos of fat people without even asking them. And it's like really violating because it's like, I didn't give you permission to take photos of me. Like, why are you doing that? That's not good. It just felt really, really awful. My partner comes back. This guy like does his little tour, and I see this thing on his phone, and I'm like, oh, and I'm feeling really crappy. And he like walks back out of the food court, whatever, back towards his little janky cell phone place. And my partner comes back, and he can tell something's happened because I'm upset. Like he gets so angry. Like he's just like, who did it? Who did something? And he's like ready to fight somebody. And I was like, oh, it was the guy at the cell phone place. And the problem with saying that is that there's like 8 cell phone places in any mall. And there was one actually just in front of the food court, and it was not the correct man. However, there was a man standing in the doorway of that store. And so my partner sort of looks around, sees a cell phone place, and he's like on a mission, and he's like beelining for this guy. And I'm just like, oh my God, I've sent an infuriated hobbit at this man. I'm like shouting out, no, it's not him. And he's like, what is it? You know? And he was just so mad. He did end up going down sort of the hallway where we'd come and like finding the place. And the guy was there, but his manager was also there. And he was like, I don't want to confront him like in front of his boss, but I'm going to stand here and just death glare at him. And he did. And the guy was so uncomfortable that he actually like asked his boss to like leave. I think like it's a representative story of like just how entitled people feel to fat bodies. They're just like, yeah, I'm going to take a picture of this and make her like the butt of the joke for like either for like me and my buddies, or like I'm just gonna like take a picture so I can like look back at this later on when I need to laugh, you know? And it's just, it's childish. It's really immature. Why you gotta be that way? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, nice people don't do that stuff. People who are like minding their own business don't do that stuff. So it's just like a really good encapsulation, I think, of like that phenomenon of like, oh my God, I've never seen anything funnier than this fat lady kind of attitude that you sometimes see around fatness. So I thought that was a pretty good example of a story. I laugh about these stories now because I think like in hindsight, it's just like these people are ridiculous. Like when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, these people are ridiculous. Like who does that, you know? And so like now I can look back and laugh at them. At the time that these things were happening, I probably was like devastated. Like I remember feeling really, really awful after a couple of them at least. Like I'm trying to think about how I was feeling after like the animal noises and stuff are like so common that like I don't actually know how much they affect me anymore. But certainly like it doesn't improve my day, right? It's not like I'm going along my day and I'm having a great day and then someone like makes animal noises at me and I'm like, my day's still great. Like my day does feel worse after that, right? Like it does affect my mood. Yeah, I think it's just like, if nothing else, I think it should be reasonable to expect a little bit of maturity from other adults, that they're not just like doing these really childish, thoughtless, bullying things to total strangers. These are all total strangers who have never met me before. At that point, you can't call it like, you know, teasing or whatever. You know, that's something you do to like your brother or like your childhood friend or like your auntie, right? Like you don't do that with a total stranger who you've never met before. And if you do, you make it really obvious that it's in good fun. None of this stuff was in good fun. It was all just sort of making me into this like object of their amusement, basically. That's kind of the flavor, as it were, of these sort of aggressive, like mean things that people do to fat people, is like, we are being made the object of their enjoyment, whether it's they're finding us really funny. We also find this sometimes in dating where people are like, you literally exist only for my pleasure, because people will be like, I'm into fat girls or whatever. And they're like, literally like what we want does not matter because we are only there for them. And it's like, it's really common thing that you see with fat people where like, they're like, you a person? Nah. It's so bizarre. Anyways, so I thought it was an interesting topic. I'm really grateful to the person who suggested it. Thank you. You're probably watching. I hope that that was informative or entertaining or something. I hope that if you have done these things, that you know that it is really childish and you should not do those things anymore. The things that people find the most upsetting when I talk to them about like being fat and stuff is these kind of interactions where it's one person saying a bad thing to me or doing a bad thing to me, as opposed to sort of these like structural things where like I can't find a job or whatever. But in reality, I think the things that really impact me the most are those structural things. And so often you see this sort of outpouring of support, like, oh, I'm so sorry he said that thing to you, or like whatever, when it's these sort of like one-on-one interactions. But when fat people try to talk about like, oh, well, I can't get like medical care because, you know, my doctor's basically being like, oh, you have a broken arm, you treat that by diet and exercise, you know? I think it's important too for us to recognize that even though these stories are like, maybe like easier to see how bad they are, or like easier to, I guess, understand what fat phobia looks like sort of between two people in like an interpersonal interaction, like even though that's easier, I think like the really substantial stuff, the really significant impacts that we're dealing with are still structural. They are still systems that are in place. And so I think that's why it's so important to be mostly on this channel to talk about those kinds of systems, because they have such a huge impact. Obviously, sometimes I just like to tell stories. So that's what we're doing today. And I think because that's sort of how this channel began, and I want to, you know, honor that a little bit. And I do love storytelling. I think I will continue to do like maybe 1 in every 5 videos will be something like this where I just like tell stories. But if you want to hear more of this kind of content, definitely let me know in the comments. If you prefer the content where I'm talking about more structural stuff, let me know in the comments. If you prefer sort of like the how-to guides and stuff, because I sometimes am like, this is how you do this is how you do that, this is like just educational like research or whatever, like let me know what is the most interesting, because I've been doing this for a while now and I'm finally making videos, not in real time exactly. I am still like batch recording them and stuff, but I'm able to kind of take more feedback at this point. I'd be really interested to know what is the best stuff for you guys, like what you're most interested in, and I'll try and do more of that. That is all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you got something out of this video, please do hit the like. You can subscribe if you want to get notifications every Wednesday when I upload videos, and just hit the little notification bell and it'll send you a little notification. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.